Welcome everyone to Ask the Expert, QuickBooks monthly panel show to help small businesses. My name is Patrick, a chartered accountant and Intuit UK trainer, that QuickBooks chap on the internet, and also head of accounts over at Boffix. And it's an absolute pleasure to be with you today. Today's Ask the Expert panel is all about building a brand for your business and then nailing your marketing. Most small business owners start out because they're passionate about their product or service and truly believe if they can reach the right people, it will be a success. But your expertise may not be in marketing, so you have to learn on the job. Or you may have some idea of what to do, but you're not quite sure and don't feel you have the budget to match the scale you want to achieve. To many, brand and marketing can feel like a dark art, but it doesn't have to be that way. One of Intuit's core value is powering prosperity. For the QuickBooks team, this means empowering businesses and sole traders just like you. That's why today we hope to share the insights and know-how that'll help you find the audience and customers. For myself, I know what it's like to develop a brand. My accounting firm is a small business too with multiple different brands. We went from outsourcing our whole marketing department, making a lot of mistakes on the way, to creating an in-house team that not only understands our needs for our business, but is also looking to support our clients' needs also. We'll be discussing the importance of developing a brand that's right for your business to help put your best foot forward. And once you've got the brand together, it's about getting it in front of the right people. Where should you invest your money and time, and what marketing channels? Because trust me, it's easy to waste a lot of money if you go down the wrong channel. As always with Ask the Expert, this session is all about you. So please do get involved. If you watch live across YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, share your questions in the comments and we'll put them to the panel in the second half of the show. So let's get to it. I'd like to welcome today's guests, both experts in the field with lots of insight into the world of brand and marketing. They are founder of Frank and official spokesperson for Lord Sugar, Andrew Bloch, and business director and head of security media at Kindred, Parrish. Thank you for both being here. To kick things off, I'd love to hear a little bit about you and your business and what you do. So over to you, Andrew.
Thank you for having me, Aaron. Pleasure to be here. So I started my career about 25 years ago in PR, co-founded my agency, Frank, which is coming up to 22 years old in a couple of weeks. 2 years ago, I decided to take a step back, moved into a non-executive position, and now I wear sort of number of different hats. Probably the most relevant to this conversation is helping small businesses and fast growth startups with their marketing, their PR, their social, their digital media, helping them to find the right agencies or helping them to resource it in-house. As you mentioned, I also have had the privilege of being official spokesperson for Lord Sugar for, again, over 20 years. I guess I'm doing something right, haven't been fired yet. And then I, amongst other things, buy and sell agencies on behalf of management consultancies and big agency groups. I sit on the business launch panel for the Prince's Trust, helping to advise young entrepreneurs, as well as a number of other charities and not-for-profit organisations, people like St Paul's Cathedral, the Marketing Society, the School of Creative Arts, School of Communication Arts, School of Marketing. And I'll shut up now and let Emma say something before we run out of time.
Emma, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Really great to be here. My name's Emma Parrish. I'm a business director at a creative communications agency called Kindred. We are independent. There is about 37 of us. We are an SMB ourselves. And the reason that we exist is to help make positive change through the power of communications. We've been doing it for over 21 years now. And what we mean by positive change is making a difference, making a positive impact on people, on communities, and on the planet. So kind of in our 21 years of operation, we have helped try and tackle food waste from people's homes. We've helped improve financial well-being. And we've helped people learn new skills. So it's a really kind of broad mix of work that we do. In my role as business director, I oversee our social media team. So kind of social and digital and content is really my heartland. But like Andrew, I cut my teeth in PR at the beginning of my career as well. So really looking forward to hopefully giving you some helpful advice.
Definitely. And I got to admit, we've got some right experts ready for this. And I can't wait to get some insight from them both. So let's start with our first main topic. And our topic is going to be on brand. And if we're talking about on brand, one of the questions that always comes to mind is, what are the keys to success for a strong brand itself? Now, Andrew, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, sure. I think the key for a success of any brand is standing for something and finding a point of differentiation. Generally, when someone launches a new business, it's not completely unique, and they need to find what's the thing that they want to talk about. So that thing has to be one thing. You can't try and be all things to all people and say lots and lots of things at the same time. And then you need to find a way to cut through. And in a world where we're really over-communicated, to standing out and doing something different that's going to get you noticed, and noticed for the right thing, is where you need to begin with your brand.
I'd completely agree with that. I think the other thing I would maybe add to that is about consistency, and that being kind of really key to brand building. So when you've defined your one thing, as Andrew says, I think the way that you communicate that and talk to people in your tone of voice, in your visuals, making sure that consistency is there, will start to build your brand recognition.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what we've definitely learned at Boffix was how that brand recognition is just so difficult at first to get out there. But like you said, once you've got that consistent message and you start basically hammering that point time and time and time again, and that's when you definitely do start to see some benefits from it. So you mentioned and kind of brought on a little bit of part of this, Andrew. I'm going to push this to Emma first. In a saturated market, how can SMBs differentiate themselves through their messaging? Because you kind of mentioned that, didn't you? So do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think having a USP rather, as Andrew said, is really key. And I think defining that can be really hard. And I think the trap is very easy to fall into, to want to be all things to all people, but actually kind of staying true to your purpose, your mission, your reason for being. And I think what's really telling is, can you communicate your brand in a sentence? And then if you can do that, you're golden. But can you do it in a sentence? Can you do it in a paragraph? Can you do it in a page? I think then you start to get a kind of messaging hierarchy, and you realize what is the single-minded reason that should run through everything that you do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I'd add to it. I think, yes, you need consistency, 100%. You also need people to sit up and take notice. And effectively, when you're a small business, or any business, to be honest, the best marketing you can ever get is when other people are doing your marketing for you. So in order to do that, you need to find what it is that's going to create this buzz, this talkability. And that can be anything from looking at your imagery and how you present yourself. It can be about finding a form of differentiation in terms of what's the thing that you want people to remember. It can be looking at the zeitgeist and what's going on in the world, or potentially, more importantly, what's going to be happening in 3 months, 6 months, a year, and how can you put your brand at the center of it. But if you don't have that buzz, and you don't engage people, and you don't encourage them to help share, I think the biggest challenge for any small business is just getting noticed in the first place. So whilst you can have this consistency of messaging, if no one hears it, it's kind of irrelevant. You have to focus on, how am I going to build this audience? And you don't have to speak to everyone. You need to define who your audience is and figure out how you're going to reach them. And often one of the biggest mistakes brands make when they're starting out is they try and reach everyone and talk to everyone. And you don't need to do that. You need to figure out who your community is, who are the people that are going to drive sales, drive sign-ups, whatever it is you're trying to achieve from a business perspective. And then really be laser focused on how you're going to grab their attention and help them share the messaging.
Yeah, it's really interesting as well, isn't it, at the moment, because you say about getting noticed and how important it is to get noticed, but actually we've got probably the best solutions and tech and opportunities to do that now, haven't we? There's so much opportunities there with, having the right software to be able to create those images, and having the right software to create the videos, if that's what the route you're going down. It's never been easier to actually achieve that. So in some respects, at least we've got that on our side to be able to actually go out there and create imagery and create items that have that chance to be shouted about. going forward.
But in some ways, Aaron, that's what's created the problem. It's never been easier to reach people, and I can get a message out to 1 million people at a click of a button, but it's harder and harder to grab their attention. And sometimes I feel like, because especially with social media, it's, in inverted commas, it's free. Sometimes that means people sort of lack the discipline and the thought process that they would put into something that they were paying for. And just because channels are there and at your disposal doesn't mean you have to use them all the time. You should use them wisely with the right messaging. And of course, there's no point speaking to an empty audience. So another mistake I often see is lots of brands spending a great deal of resource, whether that's time, money, whatever, creating all of this great marketing material, and they're talking to 12 people on a LinkedIn page, or that doesn't work either. So you have to build your audience. But as you said, you're right. Once you've got that audience, the means of reaching them are much, much easier than they've ever been before.
Yeah, and on that kind of part about what to talk to them and what you should be saying, have you got any kind of tips on when crafting that brand message or story? What kind of things should SMBs always remember? Does any of you want to kind of jump in on that one?
It's a good question. I think it goes back to having those brand values, and something that we do in my team when working in social media is we think, if we put this post out, what is the intended purpose of it? What do we want people to do as a result of it? But more than that, is anyone going to care if it doesn't go out there? Because I think that really, if you keep that in your mind, it really helps cement what you're trying to say and how you're framing it, and actually what you want people to do as a result. Because I think it's very easy, especially with social media, to think we just have to post something every day. And actually it's not the case. I think it's about quality, and it's about doing something that actually is going to make an impact.
Yeah, I would say add value. So, that value could be through education, could be making them laugh, could be offering them a discount or something. But if you're not adding value with your posts, then don't bother to post, because the world is too short and we're too busy just to see a load of rubbish on a LinkedIn feed, on an Instagram feed, on a TikTok channel. You always have to think, what's in this for my audience? Why would they want to see it, watch it, and engage with it?
And I think on that as well, you were talking about defining your audience, Andrew. I think the most basic place to start with that is talk to your customers, like to the people who already are part of your customer base, your core target audience. What made them come to you to use your product, your service, to buy from you, and what do they like hearing from you? I think that's a place to start. If you really have no idea and you think, oh, but my audience is everyone, start there.
Yeah, and the advantage of social media in particular is you can test and learn. So, you can put a message out there, see how it resonates, see what sort of engagement, interaction you get. And if it's not working, don't repeat the same thing again and again. Tweak it, adapt it, test and learn. Again, one of the biggest mistakes I see in a lot of startups, a lot of small businesses, is they go both feet first. They're wowed by a social media agency or a digital agency or someone they've hired internally, and they just sort of jump both feet first in. You don't need to do that. That's the beauty of digital media, is you can test, you can adapt. And if you're paying careful attention to the data and the analytics, you can tweak it until you figure out what works. Then you repeat it, and with the money that you've saved sort of holding back, you've got budget to then scale up and go bigger.
Yeah, it's amazing it's amazing how much of the actual statistics you get, isn't it, these days, to be able to utilize and be able to use. I think my bit that, for when it comes to brand message or story, what I've always done is look at my peers as well. Look at what my rivals are doing, what are they doing in the space? Because if you found someone who's successful on those social media channels and everything else, then normally that's because they've got their brand and messaging right. So if you kind of almost dissect what they're doing and look into why have they posted a particular post and why have they gone down a particular channel to talking about a particular story, and if you start dissecting it, then most of the time it gives you a chance to have a go.
100%. Yeah, but the only word of caution I say is you have to do it in your own style, and especially with on social media, does tend to be individuals that will do better than a brand. So the CEO, the MD, the marketing director. And to really resonate, you have to be authentic, and it's not always sell. So going back to what I was talking about in terms of value, some of the most successful small business entrepreneurs are the ones that tell their personal story, that talk about the ups as well as the downs. They're not constantly saying, I'm up at 4 a.m, do 2 hours exercise, I've done a day's work before you've even got out of bed. I think that style of sort of posting is a bit cliched and people are a bit tired of it. The people that do best are the people that open up a little bit about themselves. I'm not saying, tell everyone what you had for lunch or anything like that, but just be your true self and stay authentic. So learn from others, but then learn how to adapt that, because you can't, when people talk about personal branding, which is, as you know, a big buzzword, big topic in the industry, the key to personal branding is just being yourself. You can't fake it. So that's really important too, I think.
That's so true. And I think the linked influencers are, becoming something of almost ridicule now. But I think something you said then about sometimes individuals are more successful than the kind of business page is totally true. But I think also really successful business pages or brand pages tend to be when they have that authentic tone of voice. So there's a person behind these channels, and it feels, especially for small businesses, you put so much of you and your life into this company. And I think showing that is no bad thing. I think it's really great when you get social media posts from small brands. I'm thinking of a particular notebook company that I follow on Instagram, and their tone of voice is just so lovely because I can tell it is the owner posting things from her kitchen where she works with her daughter. And I think, it helps potential customers get a feel for who you are and what you stand for.
And I think one of the reasons why an agency like yours, Kindred, has been so successful is helping brands define their purpose. And consumers nowadays, well, not just consumers, B2B audiences as well, they make their decisions much more selectively than they did 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So they want to understand that a brand has the same values, the same purpose that they align to. And again, obviously that has to be genuine, it has to be articulated in a way that's authentic. And I think what great agencies like Kindred do is they help brands find their purpose, when sometimes, although it should be obvious, it's not necessarily obvious how to bring that to life in an interesting and an engaging way. And that's what a great PR agency will help a business to achieve.
Yeah, that word purpose is interesting, because I think a lot of people are a bit scared of it because it sounds quite lofty. And actually, it really doesn't have to be. And your purpose could be really simple. It could be about making things just easier for someone. It could be about saving them time. It could be about saving them money. It doesn't always have to mean, global sustainability and tackling climate change. It can be those kind of really personal impacts.
Definitely. And that's why you talk about positive change. And, it's very easy to sort of look at positive change and think, well, that's changing the world. We're going to reduce carbon emissions. We're going to be net zero. Actually, positive change can be putting a smile on someone's face.
Exactly.
Giving them information, helping them, being useful. It's anything that's positive, but it is about adding value to your audience. So having a think about that, I think, is really important. That when you're a small business owner, as we all are, to be honest, you have this sort of temptation to tell the world everything. And I remember a year or so into our business at Frank, we brought someone in just to sort of have a look at the way we communicate. And I'll never forget, she sort of turned around and she sort of looked at our credentials presentation. She said, "Why don't you tell people you've got 14 plug points in your office?" Well, who cares about that? She went, exactly. You can remove 90% of the stuff. I know you're proud and it's achievements for you, but just put yourself in the mindset of the people listening. They don't need to know every intricate detail of your business. They just want to know how you can help them. So focus on that.
Yeah. Let's turn our attention to marketing though before we jump to the Q&A questions. So to both of you, this one. So what do most SMBs get wrong when it comes to their marketing, and what can we learn from them? Is there anything you can think top of your head?
I think the one that I see most often, particularly on social media, is trying to do all of the platforms all in one go. So you're on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and it's too much. And you don't need to. I think my advice would be focus on one, do it well. Of course, when you want to expand into platforms, there are clever ways to think about content that can be repurposed across different platforms, so you maximize your budget, but don't feel like you suddenly have to be on TikTok. Everyone's talking about TikTok. That's not to say TikTok isn't the right platform for some of you, but try not to do everything all at once.
Yeah, definitely prioritize, I think is spot on, but also understand what your business objective is, and don't do anything until you understand that. And I think the most common mistake that I often see is people going too early. They're so keen to get out there and do something that they use their budget up before they're actually ready to capitalize on the marketing, PR, social media noise that they've created. So if your business objective is to sign up customers, for argument's sake, make sure you're ready to do that and you're equipped to do that. Don't start talking to them before you're in a position to make the most of it. And you find a lot of business owners, they're so keen to get their brand out there, to tell the world that they've arrived. They're not actually ready to capitalize on any success that they generate. And you only get one chance to make a first impression, which I know is a cheesy line, but it's true. And you only get one chance to sort of capitalize on the noise that you generate. So make sure you do that at the moment when you decide to launch and announce. You're ready to follow it all the way through, and the experience that the end audience gets is the experience you want them to get. Because if you're not quite ready and you're beta testing, or you're still playing around with the back end of your website, if you muck it up, that customer is unlikely to come back or pay any attention to you. There's no point saying, hey, we're probably a bit early, we're ready now, because you've lost them. So timing is everything, and not, like Emma said, trying to do everything at once. Hold something back, test and learn, do the stuff that is probably a bit cheaper and easier to do first. And as you learn and you develop and the business learns, then you increase your budgets accordingly. And I'll always say to any startup, wait until you've got revenue coming in before you get really bold, because it's quite scary to spend money when you're not making money. Once you're making money, it's easier to make a decision about what proportion of that income, profit, you want to divert into marketing. Not so easy when everything is an expense and you haven't got any customers and you're not making anything.
Definitely. Now, we've got some questions from the audience. So if you've got any questions, then do make sure you let the comments know. And this is my favorite part of Ask the Expert. So Emma, we'll start with you on this one. Shelley on LinkedIn asked the following. I'm having trouble differentiating between my company mission, vision, and customer value propositions. There's a ton of overlap. How would you pause these messages?
Oh, great question. I think it is very easy to kind of mix them up and find that they overlap. I think one way that certainly we looked at it as a business was we looked at starting with the why. I don't know if anyone here has read any of Simon Sinek's books, but he has this thing that you start with the why. Why does your business exist? And it comes back to that one sentence. And then you can look at the how, which is, this is why your business exists. So how do you achieve that? Like what is it that you do? And then you can kind of build it out that way. We found that really, really useful. So our why is we deliver positive change. How we do it is we are an integrated PR and comms agency. So I think starting there might simplify things a little bit.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is have a look at other people's companies you admire, companies that are in a similar space to you. I still find it confusing to this day because they do overlap and you can get a bit overly obsessed with it. But look at brands that, look at great brands, look at Nike, look at Coca-Cola, and then also look at the people in your set. And I think that helps. I'm not saying copy them, but the easiest way to understand what's powerful and what works for your internal audience and potentially an external audience is to look at how others who have been successful have done it themselves and then make it your own.
Yeah, definitely start to utilize what's gone well in the past. And that's exactly what we did. We looked at exactly that. We looked at the Apples of the world and tried to utilize some, at least elements of those ones that would actually make sense to ours and can work on from there. And I think that's great advice. Next question, we'll go straight to you on Andrew on this one. Julia on LinkedIn asks the following: I'm an emerging marketing consultant. What advice do you have regarding advancing my transferable skills and personal brand?
I don't really know what an emerging marketing consultant is. Does that mean someone that's building their career as a marketing consultant?
That's right. Yeah, starting to build themselves up.
So I think, going back to what I was saying earlier, add value. Add value by sharing knowledge, by talking about work that you're doing, by sharing work of others that you admire. I think for me, like, if I think of myself as a personal brand, which I hate to do because that sounds horrible, but I think where my value is sharing great creative work, explaining work that I'm doing, looking at sort of other people's stuff and talking about that, and just generally adding value either by information or by amusing people. And different channels have different roles. So if you look at my Twitter feed, it's much more light-hearted, sharing great creativity, great work, but also having a bit of fun of brands that get it right, brands that get it wrong, people that get it wrong. LinkedIn, much more factual. So it's really, for me, it's a way of sharing what I'm doing. And when you share what you do, often the key with these things is being front of mind. So just by people seeing you in their feed, they make that simple sort of equation in their head. Oh, Andrew could be good to help me with that. I'm not selling myself, I'm not offering to do it. It's just how people think. And then I use Instagram really, I guess, to show a little bit more about my personal life. I'm still pretty guarded because I think I'm of the age where I don't share every waking moment of my life. But if you go on my Instagram page, you'd see the odd picture of my kids, a car, a pair of trainers, a bit of art, stuff that I'm just interested in. So it sort of just adds a layer. So I think Emma said it earlier, don't do exactly the same on every channel. Figure out what you want to use each channel for. I have got TikTok just because I work with TikTok and sit on a panel that judges entrepreneurs on TikTok. I find that the least easy, I think, in terms of building a network. But having said that, via only posting probably about 12 things, got a couple of thousand pretty engaged followers on that. And, other channels, not really relevant at all. Facebook, actually, I was reminded today by my Facebook memory that my profile picture is 15 years old on Facebook. So that shows how often I go there. But there's no problem with that. Just because a channel exists doesn't mean you have to use it. So I would just, hopefully pick up on some of those tips and just start to share in an appropriate way. And also follow people you're interested in. I think the easiest way to build your network is by following people that are in a similar sort of career zone to you, people you admire, and engage with them. Just don't use it as a broadcast channel. Social media is a two-way thing. And don't do it for the sake of it. You do see people on LinkedIn in particular who will comment and praise everything. It loses its power if you don't do it genuinely and don't mean it. And if you hold it back for when you really believe in something, that praise, that encouragement means so much more.
Yeah, Emma, have you got anything to add to that one?
No, I was nodding along because I agree with absolutely everything. I like the quote, just because a channel exists doesn't mean you have to be on it. Something I'm sure I will use with my clients in future.
You can have that one for free.
Definitely. And we learned the hard way on that one as well. We tried to do the whole, let's just post to everything. We even bought one of the fancy solutions where it literally just posts to everything. And yeah, that's definitely not the way to go and not the engagement. You'll get zero engagement from that. We learned the hard way. Shima on LinkedIn asked the following: I have moved away from the salesy social posts and try to share and educate. Should I include a sales pitch line at the end of every post? Emma, have you got any thoughts on that one?
Ooh, I mean, caveat, it sort of depends on the brand, but I would largely say no. I think that think it goes back to what we were talking about the role of the post. So if you want to do a sales message, do a sales message. But if you want to inform, inspire, entertain, then do those things. I think, the more you put out kind of links to sales things at the end of everything, it just becomes white noise to your followers and to people. So I would recommend doing kind of fewer posts, but think about the purpose of that post. So you may say 2, 3, 5, whatever it is, posts a week, a month are going to be purely focused on sales, and they're going to give you a reason to want to click through. But everything else might be about education or tips or funny content, whatever is right for your brand.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, it goes back to this sort of adding value. If you look at people like Lord Sugar, Piers Morgan, they both got followings in the 5 million plus on social media. Probably about 80% of those messages are directly sales messages, plugging businesses, TV shows, books, whatever it might be. But the 20% that they write stupid stuff, that they banter, that they have a laugh, that they ridicule others and themselves, that's what keeps people hooked in. Obviously, they're big personalities, big characters, and the same sort of applies with brands. Probably for a brand, you flip it and you do 80% adding value, 20% sales. But I agree with Emma, keep it separate, win the right to sell, so to speak. And your audience, look, if they're not interested, they're not going to follow. And again, that's where you look at the analytics and you see the engagement. And yes, you can see a stupid joke on Twitter can get thousands and thousands of retweets and comments, and a sales message might only get a few comments, a few retweets. But it doesn't mean people haven't seen them. It's always going to be more of a broadcasting thing to sell than it is an engagement thing. But you've got to look at your followers and what's keeping them hooked and just tweak it. You can set your assumptions on day one. It doesn't mean you have to stick to those. Change it once a week, once a month, play around with it until you find a formula that is increasing that level of engagement and response, and ideally linking to your business objectives.
Yeah, definitely. I've always found that for us, content pillars has been the most important aspect of any form of kind of marketing, and making sure we got our right content pillars and when we're going to post them and dates and all that sort of stuff, just to give some structure to it. And I think that was the best way for us to understand when to be salesy and when not, what content is right to be trying to actually do a quote unquote a hard sell, and what content is all about engagement and all about trying to grow that.
It is, and I think the only thing is, I would say, is don't get too hung up on those content pillars. You've got to be fluid as well. And actually, when I was sort of at Frank, we had this term agendaneering. How do you commandeer the news agenda? So, if you're a recruitment company, for argument's sake, what's going on in the world of recruitment at the moment that you can jump on the back of and add value and add opinion? And it might be around the search for a new Conservative leader. It might be around the women's football team winning the Euros. It might be to do with working from home, the Great Resignation, all of these kind of, but the more topical you make it, you can either sort of sit on the sidelines and watch the conversation happen, or you get on the pitch and you join in. And sometimes the best results are the ones where it's not part of a content calendar. You understand your brand values, you understand what your position is, what your role is, and you either lead the conversation or you jump into a conversation that's already happening. So the more topical something is, the more the likelihood is that people are going to be interested and engage with it.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, unfortunately, that is it. That is all we have time for today. So thank you for everyone for tuning in. If you have any more questions or need any further advice, then please do make sure you join our official Intuit QuickBooks SME community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts just like myself are on hand 24/7. We've had a fantastic time on today's show. Thanks to the guests, Andrew and Emma. You've been absolutely brilliant with some great insights. And to all who've turned in, my name is Aaron Patrick, and thank you for watching. Have a great day.